Hello everybody, today I will be talking about the 12 main Greek gods and goddesses, as well as some Greek myths. But before we get started, let's talk about what happened before the mighty Olympians existed. So before the Olympians, the Titans existed. Well, there was also something before the Titans, but that's another story. So the king of the Titans, Kronos, was married to Rhea, the Titaness. When they had their first baby, Hestia, who would later become one of the 12 Olympian gods, Kronos realized that Hestia was not at all a Titan. Hestia was a new generation, and Kronos could tell that Hestia radiated way more power than himself. So, Kronos was the one who chopped down his father, Uranos, with a scythe, which was pretty violent, and Uranos cursed Kronos, so one day his kids would take over him. What did Kronos do? He swallowed Hestia, and also all of the other kids he had with Rhea later. And then there's this last kid, who you might know, who has the name of Zeus, who did not get swallowed. Later he ended up saving all of his siblings from Kronos' stomach, and that's why he became one of the most well-known Olympian gods. First, I'm going to talk about Aphrodite. Why does everybody talk about Zeus first? Are they trying to do reverse alphabetical order? Anyways, I'm going to talk about Aphrodite first. Aphrodite is the goddess of love and beauty. Rumor says that she had a son, Eros, aka Cupid in Roman mythology, but that's just a rumor and we don't know what actually happened in Greek mythology. Aphrodite was commonly worshipped. The cult of Aphrodite was likely to be influenced by ancient civilizations, like Sumer and the Akkadians. Aphrodite was married to Hephaestus, but she wasn't really loyal to him, and she started this secret relationship with Aries, but it wasn't really a secret because it became the worst secret kept on Mount Olympus, like ever. Apollo was the god of so many things. When the ancient Greeks forgot who the god of a certain thing was, they would think it was Apollo. For example, originally, Apollo was not the god of the sun, that was Helios' job. But people eventually forgot about Helios and they were like, wait, who's the god of the sun again? Oh, it must be Apollo. So that's how Apollo became the new god of the sun. Apollo was also the god of music, medicine, prophecies, and archery. One of his most famous symbols is the lyre, which is like a small harp. Also, he had a twin sister called Artemis, but we'll talk about her later. Aries was the god of war, and nothing else, just the god of war. And he was highly esteemed by the Spartans, because the Spartans were an extremely violent group of people, and they prayed to Aries for good hunting seasons and victorious wars. However, Aries was not a commonly worshipped god, but there are temples dedicated to him in places like Athens and Argos. As promised, I'm going to talk about Artemis next. So Artemis was the goddess of the wilderness and also archery. Just like her twin brother, Apollo, she was really good at archery, but of course she didn't brag it as much as Apollo did. Artemis also eventually replaced Selene, who was the titaness of the moon, so she was also the goddess of the moon. And also, she was one of the maiden goddesses in Greek mythology, which means she will never get married and she will never have any kids with the other gods. Athena is the goddess of wisdom and also strategic warfare. Unlike Ares, who does all of the killing and the murdering, Athena prefers to fight with strategies. Athena had a very close friend, and she was a nymph. Her name was Pallas. They had the same taste in almost everything, including armors and weapons and a lot of other things. But Zeus, being a great dad, accidentally killed Pallas. And ever since that incident, Athena and Pallas were often confused. So sometimes people just call Athena Pallas Athena. When Zeus and Metis had kids together, it was believed that he or she would overpower Zeus. So when Zeus and Metis eventually had a kid together, her name was Athena, Zeus was afraid that Athena might overpower him. So what did Zeus do? Again, as history repeats itself, Zeus swallowed Athena, just like how Kronos swallowed his kids as well. Of course, Athena did not want to get trapped in Zeus's stomach, and having heard that Kronos swallowed his kids, she already had some experience of what she needs to do. So first she dissolved into pure thought, and then when she came to Zeus's brain, she hammered on like very hard on Zeus's skull, and Zeus eventually was like, "Oh no, my skull's gonna break open." So he's like, Hephaestus, can you please break open my skull so whatever's inside can come out? So Hephaestus did what Zeus told him to, and Athena came out. Demeter was the goddess of agriculture and harvest. In Homer's epic Odyssey, wait a minute, that's the wrong Homer. Well, anyway, Demeter was portrayed as a goddess with blonde hair in Homer's epic Odyssey. And also, Demeter had 8 kids, and one of them being Persephone, which is the famous one who got abducted by Hades to go into the underworld. But that's another story. Depending on different versions of Greek mythology, the 12th Olympian god is either Hestia or Dionysus. I'm going to talk about Dionysus first. So Dionysus is the god of wine, and it was believed that people would drink wine in the sacred rituals to worship Dionysus. Hestia, on the other hand, is the goddess of the hearth. So whenever you see whenever you're chased by some bad guys and back then in ancient Greece, you can just run up to a hearth and hope that Hestia would protect you. And I'm not guaranteeing you that it would always work, but like, yeah, it's better than nothing. Besides being the god with the hardest name to pronounce, Hephaestus was the god of metalworking and also fire and volcanoes. He was born ugly and crippled, so Hera tossed him off Mount Olympus when he was still a baby. Eventually, Hephaestus got his revenge by capturing Hera, but he later forgave her and released her. Hera was the queen of the gods as well as Zeus's wife. She was also the goddess of marriage. A long time ago, Hera and Zeus made a deal. If Hera said "I love you" to Zeus, then she would have to marry him. Well, Zeus was very smart, and also kind of sly. So what he did was he turned into a bird, and during a storm, he flew into Hera's room. And Hera saw the bird, and of course, she felt bad for the bird because it was injured. And Hera eventually said "I love you" to the bird, and then when Zeus turned back in his original form, Hera had no choice but to marry Zeus. Hermes was the god of messengers and travelers, and also anybody on the road. Also, Hermes was the god of literature, specifically the patron of poetry. So next time you're doing sonnets in class and you're like, "Oh my god, why do we have to do sonnets?" you can blame Hermes for that. Besides being the god of the sea, Poseidon was also god of earthquakes and horses. Poseidon was really famous for throwing big tantrums and summoning big waves and tsunamis. When you forgot to sacrifice to Poseidon, he would get really mad and he would probably sink your ship. Wait, why is Poseidon also the god of horses, I hear you ask? Well, that is because a long time ago, Athena and Poseidon were competing to be the patron deity of Athens. Athena obviously won because the name of the city is literally Athens. And Athena, at that time, she created the olive tree, while Poseidon created the first horse. And the olive tree had more uses than the horse, so Athena won. Alright, Zeus is our last god, so bear with me here. Zeus was the king of the gods and also the lord of the sky, and the god of everything in the sky. Zeus was so well honored that the famous poet Homer, again not Homer Simpson, wrote an epic poem about Zeus. Yay, now we finished all 12 Olympian gods. You might be wondering, wait, you forgot about Hades. Well, Hades doesn't live on Mount Olympus, so he's technically not an Olympian god. And you might also be like, hey Andre, you forgot about Cheese Whiz, the god of all Cheez-Its. Or, hey Andre, you forgot about Bum Rice, the god of bad fashion statements. And of course, there are a lot of lesser gods and a lot of other minor deities in Greek mythology, but I'm not going to talk about all of them because that would take up a lot of time. Please like and subscribe. Yeah, thank you.